Hey everybody, so I'm going to be showing you how to pressure can carrots. So yesterday I pulled some carrots out of the garden. This is only about half of them. So I took them out of the garden, I scrubbed them up. I have like a potato brush. So this is what I use for my carrots, and I just use dish soap. Put the dish soap on the brush and just scrub the carrots really good. I do not skin them. I don't take the skin off, so this is you can see how clean it is, and they were dirty, and I pulled them when they were wet, which was probably even worse. But you can see they look great. I'm so excited. My carrots are doing so well. So I pulled some. I didn't pull all of them. I was kind of tossing around the idea of pulling all of them and then just replanting right away, but I figured I'll pull some, let some of the smaller ones get a little bigger since it thinned out the whole entire bed. Give it another week or two and see what develops, how much more they grow, and then we'll pull the rest so that way I can replant to have another harvest for the fall. Carrots were on my bucket list this year to grow lots of and be able to can and preserve them. So I'm really glad that, let me see if I can do this so you can see how I'm cutting them. There we go. So I'm really glad they're doing well because this was on my bucket list of things to grow and preserve lots of. I do buy a lot of carrots in the store, whether it's for soups or for fresh veggies or what have you throughout the winter. So this will be something that now I won't have to buy at the grocery store, and that's the goal, isn't it? But so I washed them, scrubbed these all up. So now what I'm doing is slicing them. You'll cut the ends off. Cut the top end and the bottom end, and then you'll just slice it to your desired thickness. There's no real rhyme or reason. Some are bigger, some are smaller, some are wider. It doesn't really matter to me anyway. If you're someone that likes precision and likes it to be exact, then you can, kind of do it however you want. But then I'll just take them, and I have a pot right here that I'm throwing them all in. If you can see that. So then I will do that with all of these. And then I think I'm going to do the cold pack method, which I will kind of tell you the difference between cold pack and hot pack when we get that far. So we will be back soon. Okay, so we have all of our carrots cut up here. We have our jar funnel and our liquid measuring cup to put the hot water into the jars. I have all my jars in the oven at 265 degrees. You want them in there preheated at 265 for at least 20 minutes or so. It's basically just to sanitize them, make sure they're extra clean, and to keep them good and hot for the whole canning process. This is my pressure canner. It's the Presto 21 quart, maybe something like that. It fits 7 quarts in it when you can with it. So that's the inside. I have a little bit of water. There is like a fill line somewhere, but I just can't find it. But it really doesn't matter. It's a couple inches of water that you put in it. Then this is the lid. This is the pressure gauge. And this is your little pressure valve thing that goes on the top. So that keeps the pressure in. Once you bring it to a certain pressure, pounds of pressure on the gauge, then you put the little top on, which looks like, no, get those off. Looks like this, and you'll pop that on here. So we are boiling water in this pot. You want to have fresh, clean boiling water to fill your jars with. So what I'm going to do is I am going to take my jars out of the oven. I will probably take out all 7 quarts at one time. I put them here on my cutting board. I will put a little bit of the hot water at the bottom, which I'll show you, just so that way the jar doesn't crack when you put in the carrots that are cold. This is your cold pack method. Your hot pack method is when you boil the carrots first and then ladle them into the jars. So we are not going to do that. We're going to do the cold pack method. So you'll put your cold carrots into your hot jars, and then you'll cover them with liquid. Okay, so my water is boiling in the pot. I have my canning lids back here simmering, just like to keep warm in a little pot. My carrots are cut. I am going to get the jars out of the oven. So I just use a clean dish towel. Okay, so I have my hot jars out of the oven. I just use a clean dishcloth to get them out. You can use jar grabbers. I don't prefer jar grabbers, so that's what I use. They are here, they are hot. My water is boiling. So what I'm going to do, because the carrots are cold, we're doing the cold pack pressure canning method. I'm going to take just a little bit of this boiling water, and I'm going to put just a little bit in the bottoms of each jar to prevent cracking when you put the cold carrots in the hot jar, because that is what will happen. The jars will crack, and then you have to start over. So we will just put some hot water in here. And that should be good. And then we will just go right ahead and we will fill the jars. Use your jar funnel. You can, this is actually super easy. You just kind of throw them in the jar. Make sure they're in all the way. And do that the whole way around with every jar. And then once they're all full, you want to make sure they're packed pretty well. There's nothing worse than having them end up being like half full once the liquid goes in and they cook down. So we'll do that, and then we will take more of this boiling water and we will fill up the jar. There's nothing in this water. Some veggies you can salt if you so choose. I just don't. Fill it up. Fill up this one. And then we will put our lids on once they're all full, and we will put them in the canner. So we have all of our jars filled. We filled them with the carrots, then the hot water, then you wipe the rim. So I just take my cloth, get it wet on like a little spot, and I will wipe all the rims. Even though there's no like sticky or chunky ingredients in this that can prevent your seal, it's always good just to wipe it, just for like extra insurance. So then we put our warm lids on. We're gonna put the rings on. You just want these finger tight. You don't want to like crank them on there. And then we will get them put in the canner. So that's that. Alright, so our canner is simmering away over here. So we are going to place our jars down into the canner. I ended up with 6 quarts, which is awesome for the first pickings of the carrots. Then you're going to take your lid with your pressure gauge. You're going to line up the arrows, and you're going to close it just like that. Now the goal here is to bring this gauge for carrots. You want to bring it up to the 11. So 10's right there, so 1 past that. You're going to pressure can it for at the, oops, we don't want to do that yet. So you're going to bring it up to 11 pounds of pressure, and then you're going to put that little toggle on so that way the pressure can't get out, and you're going to time it for 30 minutes. And you're going to pressure can them for 30 minutes. Once your 30 minutes is up, you're going to take it off the heat or turn off your burner, and you're going to let it depressurize by itself. Do not take the lid off. Whatever you do, do not take the lid off. And then this little valve here, when the pressure's built up in there, it will pop up and it will tell you that it's pressurized. So once it's depressurized, after you're all done and it cools, that little button will drop down, and then you can take your little toggle, your weight off the top, and you can either let it sit for a few more minutes, or you can open it up and take your stuff out. It is extremely, extremely hot. When you open that lid, open it away from you. It will scorch your skin. It's very hot. The steam is very hot. Even once it's depressurized, it's still extremely hot in there. I usually will take the lid off and let it sit even a little bit longer, so that way none of the liquid siphons out of your jar. So I will show you as soon as it's done. So another little thing that I forgot to say before. So now I have this burner on. You can see, well, you probably can't see, but there's a steady stream of it's not liquid, but it's like steam coming out of this one. Now you have to wait until there's a steady stream like that coming out for 10 minutes. And then you will put your weight on top and then start the timing process once it gets up to 11 pounds. So everything you can is different. So some things you have to keep it at 10 pounds, some things you have to keep it at 15 pounds. It just depends on what you're making. The booklet that came with my canner is very easy, very straightforward, easy to, you know, read and understand what you're actually supposed to do for the entire process. This process is the same for everything you pressure can. The only thing that varies is your pressure that you need to keep it at. So again, you're going to fill your canner, you're going to put your lid on, you want a steady stream of steam coming out of this for 10 minutes. Once that is streaming for 10 minutes, then you get this, then you put your weight on and you bring this up to your pressure. And then you keep it at your pressure for X amount of minutes. And that's another thing that's different depending on what you're canning. Some things is 20 minutes, some things is 40 minutes, some things is 60 minutes, some things are 90 minutes. And it depends on the size of the jar that you're using. So we're almost at 10 minutes. We have like 7 minutes to go for that steady stream, and then we're gonna put our weight on. So there's pressure in the canner. This little button pops up. We've had the steady stream of steam coming out of there for 10 minutes, so we're going to put our weight on just like that, and then you're going to watch this pressure gauge go up to 11. Depending on how hot your burner is, it may take a little bit longer than others. It just depends. So we're just going to watch that gauge and see how quickly it rises. So we are at 11 pounds of pressure. Now you're going to regulate it by turning your burner down, usually almost all the way to low. That will still regulate it. You just have to really watch it because you don't want it to drop under pressure and you don't want it to go over pressure too high. So right now I have it like half on the burner, half off the burner, and that seems to be regulating it pretty well. And then I'll just like, right now I'm just gonna like slide it over just a little bit back onto the burner, just to keep it right there at that sweet spot. It's a little tricky to find, but once you get it, then you're pretty good. This is something you don't really want to multitask with, which is hard for me because I like to be doing this and, you know, the 5 other things that I have to do in the kitchen at the same time, but this is something you really have to pay attention to. It's not like your hot water bath canning where you're just throwing it in, putting a timer on, and letting it boil. You really have to regulate the pressure. That's the most important part. And that was the most intimidating part for me, I think, before I started pressure canning. But once you get the hang of it, it's very simple, actually. So I hope you enjoyed. And there you have it, folks. Perfectly canned, pressure canned carrots. See, it's still bubbling in there. They're still really, really hot. So what I'm going to do is just leave them right in here until they're cool.